Welcome to the third Voice of African Library podcast.
Welcome to this third episode where we're going to discuss the oral tradition and the role of libraries in Africa. And as usual, and we got used to, we will first present our proverb, the section of presenting an African proverb, right, Frederick?
Yes.
So today's proverb for this podcast is attributed to Amadou Hampade Ba, who was born in 1900 in Bandiagara in Mali. And he's famous of the saying,
In Africa, when an old man dies,
it's a library burning.
This proverb emphasizes the value of oral tradition and the vast knowledge that elders possess in many African cultures.
Exactly, and it shows that the value that elders are holding in an oral tradition as they are holding and storing all the knowledge along the years.
Exactly, because unlike the oral tradition, in the contemporary world, books on shelves do not tell the stories. We have to open and read them.
Yes, so we have to sit and listen to the elder's story.
Exactly. And then you see, there's an issue about the oral tradition and the contemporary book or the technology. Because see, with the oral tradition, information is passed from one person to the other without any media, like for example, books or technology in between. So it used to be seamlessly smooth.
So as we decided to do this episode on oral traditions and the role of libraries, first we need to define or to know what is oral tradition, right, Frederick?
Yeah, sure. So that we know exactly what we mean and what we're going to discuss in the context of this podcast today.
Exactly. So what is oral tradition for you, Frederick, or how do you understand it?
I think, according to me, I understand oral tradition is the passing of information from one person to the other using the word of mouth.
Yes. So it is actually that passing the knowledge or information from one generation to another, or one person to another, through it's using humans as a way of storage, and it is a way, or it utilizes a medium such as storytelling, songs, poetry, and other forms of orality, and it is opposed to written culture, and written culture is developed from the oral tradition. This is what Walter G. Young said in his book Orality and Literacy, where he stated that out of thousands of languages which have existed or which still exist, only few have attained the stage of writing. Oral culture thus has primacy and is always present, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because I think I can resonate this one with Kenya, because we've got roughly, I think, 40 tribes, and not all the tribes have seen their written the written communication.
Exactly. So not all the oral traditions or oral communication is transformed into writing. He mentioned that it is a need of the population, and for when they feel that their language has developed enough that they need to pass it somehow, and they created a way of writing. And in this, for people who don't know that in Africa there are they developed their own African system, and we can give an examples here. First, I have the Aruku system, which was developed by the Yoruba in Nigeria, and it was symbolic writing. And we have the Jikandi system, which was developed by the
Kikuyu,
the
exactly.
Kikuyu in Kenya.
Yeah, exactly.
And they used the pictographic and ideographic writing. Okay. And we also have the pictographic system, which was developed or which also was used by the Egyptians as the hieroglyphs. And in Africa, there are very many oral communications that have been transformed from oral tradition to writing culture. And we can also recall Toma or Loma system in Liberia, which is a syllabic script as well. So what Walter says here is that the need for oral tradition is always going to be here, because we humans need to think, to discuss our thoughts with someone, and then we can then develop them and write them. What is Africa is facing in consideration of these oral tradition is that these African system, and among many others of course, and despite their existence, have stopped developing at some point. And this is something worrying because it can lead to their extinction and disappearance. And this is mainly due to the non-use of the writing in the society, and which is based on oral traditions.
Yes, yes, I concur with you. Although still, I still believe that oral tradition still plays a vital role in preserving the cultural heritage of the society, because we got some information that we had in the ancient time that most of them have not yet been documented. So that means it ensures the cultural and identity of the communities across most African communities. Because we can see that this tradition, they are normally passed down through a wide range of transmission practices that we've been seeing for a very long time. Like, for example, the storytelling. I think in Morocco they call it hikayat.
Hikayat. It's in Arabic, actually.
In Arabic, exactly. Yeah. And then also through music, because I remember when I was growing up, they used to encourage about family planning. So we used to have songs that they used to entertain people, but at the same time, they've got a music element about it. And then you've got poetries, and then our famous weekly proverbs that we always have, each serving as a channel for passing down knowledge, values, and history from one generation to the next. We can give examples, like for example, if you go to very many countries, you can give some of the for example, in Kenya, I know that some of the information, oral traditions that are normally shared. For example, the traditional medicine and healing practices, because like still one community, they might be having a way of treating various diseases. So some of those information are used to pass through oral communication.
Yes, and we have also, for some of the songs or knowledge that have been passed, or history that has been told, for example, in Morocco by Gnawa people, who were telling their slavery history through music. And they were not only expressing it in music, but they also were expressing it in how they dressed, and also how they danced. They were using also special instruments that you cannot find elsewhere, but they got inspired, or they brought from South Africa, West or South Africa, and then they started to use it to express the pain that they were feeling and the suffering that they were living through the music. So this is also a way of communicating, or a way of transmitting knowledge. And this history was never written down. Actually, you cannot find all the manuscripts where these were documented. You can only find recent documents. But then this is very, very interesting, because this way, and this is how we know how they suffered. It's through their music and through also their rituals that they are doing every year or every season.
The Africans during that time, they also still used to survive, so they used to have their own artifacts, and the passing of the skills, or some of the issues, and also some of the practices are also passed through the oral tradition. Like for example, in Kenya, there's an artifact called a kiondo. Is a bag that was developed amongst the Kikuyu people. It's so strong. Apparently, because they did not patent it, it was patented in China. So in China they sell kiondo, but it belongs to Kenya. But because it has been patented in China, now it belongs to China. The same thing also, they used to share about information about hygiene. We've got the African, in fact, we call it the African toothbrush. It's called miswak.
Miswak.
Yes.
Yeah, we also have miswak.
Miswak,
it's in
yeah?
Arabic.
Ah, man.
Yes, of course.
It's so interesting, yeah. Do you know it's being sold in Amazon?
Really?
Of course. You have to cough some.
You mean
some
that Arabic herb, or not herb, like
the stick?
Yes, the stick.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's being sold in Amazon.
Really?
Exactly.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know.
Yeah. So other than that, also oral tradition is children about family and family care, and also how to bring about the family the women were taught how to be nice to the husband, masculinity. I shared about it last time. That I think we had an argument about it, and how to raise kids. So basically, the oral tradition was meant to ensure that the community lives in harmony.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why it is important for oral traditions or these oral communities to have a space where they can preserve this knowledge. And this space, for me as a librarian, I can say this: it's a library, and a public library where we can collect and preserve and disseminate this knowledge and information to the younger generations.
Yes, absolutely. And then you see, like at the moment, with a lot of it's called information overload. Information is everywhere, and that's what you see. Even right now, I remember some time back we were writing a paper about GALAM, that is galleries, libraries, archives, and museum.
Yes.
Whereby we are talking about that information is scattered because the libraries have not been taking initiatives. That means the galleries have got all the artifacts, and the archives have got all the old information, and the museums still have got all the artifacts and all the information. That means users at the moment, the current user nowadays wants information at once. He wants by this click of a button is supposed to be having the entire information, and that's why we feel that libraries should take an initiative.
Yes. So the thing that, for me at least, or how I see it, for example, for museum, they are a bit sophisticated for common people, like for a general public to visit all the time and to get the information from. They are made for, that's the image that people may have, like the museums are only for elite or for educated people to appreciate the art or to appreciate these artifacts. But for example, this is where the library comes, where the role of library comes to play, is to vulgarize the knowledge to the people and make it accessible and break these walls.
Yes, because absolutely, because most people believe, me included, I believe that museums are meant for tourists for a very long time. Until when I started doing my research, that's why I discovered that museums are made for studies also.
Exactly.
But now you see, because it's detached from the library, and the libraries are not so keen about them. So most of the time, people feel like when you go to a new town, see where is a museum. You're not going there for academic purposes. You're just going there to enjoy yourself and see the good sightseeing.
Exactly. So this is why there is an important vocational role for libraries, as I said, is to collect and to communicate with indigenous people and their knowledge, to preserve also any written records or artifact, also to make sure that there is education and awareness among people.
Yes, I do concur with you, and also I think library has got a role to play, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, because I think some of the roles that library can think, according to me, that I think they can play as in, for example, the archiving of indigenous knowledge. They should come up with a mechanism whereby the indigenous knowledge can be able to be archived. Also preserving written records and artifacts, because we know exactly, like for example, like in countries like Egypt, initially you just mentioned about some of the scripts that were written exactly. So we're supposed to have a mechanism through which that information can be preserved and curated, and also to be able to ensure that it's able to be accessed by the general public. Because you see, as we say the museums, they do not have a standardized way of accessing information. But library, because you catalog information, it's easier for us to ensure that information.
Yeah, not only that, but we have access also, a direct access to the population.
Absolutely.
This is where the user experience research comes to play, or ethnography comes to play, because libraries or librarians, because libraries are nothing without librarians, I believe.
Yes.
Especially in oral communities, that they should be more attentive to the possessors and the content of the orality in that community. It means that they should be aware of the knowledgeable people that exist in that community. They should also provide them with the opportunity to share their knowledge with the library users, and to create an environment for them to transmit their knowledge.
Yes, absolutely. And that can only be possible if library engages in constant user education and awareness.
Exactly. And there is a saying from NDI from 1988 in the IFLA conference or journal. And he said, all knowledge accumulated down the centuries, the fruit of the rich and varied experience of our links with nature, of our meditation, open existence, and its problems, must be able to find its place in the library beside books, bearing modern knowledge, as seems to be happening currently with rural audio libraries in Mali. And this is very important because when we create an environment where people can communicate with each other and can transmit, and also using technologies and to preserve this knowledge, to store it, to record it and store it. So it's very important for the preservation of knowledge.
Yes, I think, and then also libraries can also think about digitalization and accessibilities of this information. But I also think that for them to be able to do some of this function, they're also supposed to ensure that they've developed appropriate policy frameworks for access and also for compensation.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's a paper that I wrote some time back. It's called Harnessing of the Economic Value of Indigenous Knowledge in Kenya, a qualitative review of the legal framework. So during the paper, we discovered that the indigenous people who have got the oral information, oral tradition, some of them are hesitant because of what they saw with whatever is happening with the Westerners, where they come and take information, take it to their country and patent it. So at the moment, we've got a problem whereby the locals are resistant to share information, especially to librarians, because they think you're going to take it for your advantage.
Exactly.
And sell it to the Western countries.
Exactly. So that's the role of librarians, I believe, to create trust for the people and to make them feel that this is not going to be taken advantage of, but it's going to be a way to preserve their knowledge and make it recordable for later generations. And also, the libraries also should seek to understand how traditions always seek to identify the audience with which they seek to communicate. So, for example, for a storyteller, he does need to know who's the audience. That's the first thing they do, for example, in a story. For example, for a grandchildren or for a new person who's coming to know what is the story. So the time, the duration, and the way the story is told is completely different for grandchildren to a new person or a visitor. So this is also very important if librarians or libraries can pay attention to this.
Yes, because they need to know exactly the target population and how the information is going to be delivered.
So as we are talking about the role of libraries and in oral communities in Africa, of course we cannot deny that this role is faced with many challenges, right?
Yeah, absolutely, exactly. Any new trajectory into change, we always have to experience some challenges, yeah. Because I know, like in Africa, unlike the developing countries, whereby the systems are well placed and they've got the appropriate technology. In Africa, some of these things have been difficult. Amongst one of the things we mentioned about is the diversity of the languages. We've got so many languages in Africa. That means consolidating all the languages and all the information. For example, in Kenya, we've got 40 languages. Consolidating all the information from the 40 tribes is a little bit difficult. Yeah. We also have got lack of appropriate frameworks to store and preserve oral tradition, because we need a appropriate framework to store all this information. And then there's also ignorance as a result of modernization and urbanization, because now people believe because now we are urbanized, we should forget about the old tradition, which I think I do not concur with it. And then also the adaptation and integration, because you see, despite the fact that they are oral and the tradition practices, but we should not remove them completely. We need to establish appropriate way where we can be able to adapt them and then integrate them with the current system, so that at least we can be having a seamless transmission. And there's also lack of appropriate education and awareness in library schools Because you see, we need librarians who are the engine force behind all these things. And if they're not educated appropriately, then most probably they won't be able to be ambassadors into the they won't be ambassadors into the storage and the dissemination of this oral tradition. Because now they need to have appropriate knowledge so that they can be able to move out of their balloon.
Mm-hmm. In this context of school of libraries and appropriate awareness, actually most of the library schools or this education information in schools, they don't have a course about oral tradition and how to deal with it as a library or as a librarian. So for me, I never had it when I was studying library and information science. I don't know if you had it, Frederick.
No, I did not have it. Yeah.
So this is very interesting. We never also studied storytelling, because as a mediator, librarians are mediator in the society. So if we don't know how, or we don't study storytelling, so we will have problems to offer and to provide oral communities with that and to organize these kind of events, right?
Exactly. Yes. So we're supposed to have an avenue through which whereby they can be able to train people, so that we can be able now to have a seamlessly as in understanding of the oral tradition, so that we appreciate, so that at the end of the day we still appreciate the oral tradition, and also we still value it as a means of dissemination and also information to the general public. You know, there's a saying that says that when the bush is on fire, the chameleon must abandon the walking style of his ancestors. Mm-hmm. So you see, despite the fact that the ancestors, the old tradition, we might be having its own loopholes, we should have an avenue whereby we can be able to develop it and inculcate it so that to fit the modern world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there are other many challenges, I believe, in oral communities facing libraries, but at least we have to try to preserve it and to try to adapt to the communities. We are not, when you mentioned about the languages, libraries are not requested to adapt 40 languages. Like one library cannot adapt 40 languages, but it can adapt only one language of the community where it is implemented. So it can also absorb the information and the knowledge and try to transform it for the population. And this is a part of the role of the library, which is a social and cultural space and place. It is a place of communication. It is a place of exchange, either through oral tradition or other writing or in different medium.
Yes, absolutely. And I think for that also to be effective, we also need to have appropriate policy in place for the preservation of oral tradition, so that countries are supposed to ensure, there's supposed to be an awareness about the importance of policies, because a policy is the document that can be able to guide the libraries and as far as in implementing all those wonderful ideas.
Exactly. This we will talk about, I think, in another episode, because it's important to shed light on this, because a lot of African libraries or African countries, they don't put policies for libraries, and they just create them, and then they think that they will run themselves without a policy, but it cannot be done.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so therefore, however, promoting and preserving oral tradition and awareness cannot be done in a vacuum. Libraries need knowledgeable body of professional librarians, as you just mentioned, who can tackle these tasks effectively. These and other challenges in today's society lead us to the next topic of our podcast: library and information education in Africa.
Exactly. So next week we will be discussing this more deeply, because we need to shed light and to give more statistics about the conditions of library and information science in Africa, and to see how are the conditions of it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think it will resonate with your paper that you had written about emerging challenges in libraries in Africa.
Yes, exactly. So we will tackle this next week, but for today's episode, we will be having the discussion for the books, right, Frederick?
Absolutely.
Now it's the last section of the episode. So what do you have for us today, Frederick?
Oh, Asma, I was waiting for this section. You know, at the end of the day, we feel that when we share about the African literature, we feel more place at home, because now you see this is what at the end of the day we've been advocating through. And today's podcast, I've selected a book that resonates and is relevant with the topic of oral tradition, and that goes to Grace Ogot, 1930 to 2015.
Grace Ogot.
Yes, Grace Ogot. She's a lady. Yeah. Finally, I think I need to congratulate me. At least I've moved out of the masculinity
Yes.
space. Yeah. Grace Ogot, 1930 to 2015. She was a prominent Kenyan and writer. She's been known to write so many stories, especially short stories. Mostly contributing to the literature, particularly short stories and novels, which are often explored themes of traditional African culture, gender, and societal change. God's work, such as The Promised Land, The Island of Tears, and Land Without Thunder, reflect the deep understanding of the rural and urban life in Kenya.
Sorry, what was the last one? Land Without Thunder. Land Without Thunder. Okay.
Exactly. So basically, there are titles, but within them, they used to have short stories. So I think today's the story that I think I'm going to discuss is called "The Ghost of the Past." The Ghost of the Past by Grace Ogot, published in 1980, is part of the short tradition in the Island of Tears. The novel reflects themes of tradition, culture change, and the personality identity set in Kenya. The story follows the struggles of a young woman named Nyabera. Nyabera was the second wife to Jumba, who was the husband, the key character in the family. Jumba had two wives, that is Nyabera and Nyapolo. So Nyabera faces conflicts between her traditional upbringing and modern influences. The novel explores how past experiences and culture heritage impact the present, therefore highlighting the tension between maintaining tradition values, as we just discussed about the old tradition, maintaining the traditional values and adapting to new ways of life. Through Nyabera's journey, Ogot addresses broader questions of identity and societal change, because these changes are those which are bringing conflict in a family, because now we don't know exactly if you're supposed to inherit them, abandon them, or integrate them all together.
Yeah. That's a good book, Frederick. Thank you. It's really interesting for me. I was just listening. I wanted you to tell the whole book for me, to tell the story, since we are in an oral tradition episode. I was just enjoying.
No, yeah, but you see, the bit about it, it creates some excitement and anxiety to readers or to the listeners, so that at least they can be able to look for the book, and if there's need, I think we can have another avenue to discuss about the books in details.
Exactly. And for my book that I am glad to share today, comes from an Egyptian author who is a Nobel Prize winner, who is Najib Mahfoud, who was born in 11 December 1911 and who died in the 30th of August 2006. And he won the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1988. And he was actually the only Egyptian to win the Nobel Prize in Literature.
Wow.
Yes, and he published around 35 novels and over 350 short stories, 26 screenplays, and he also published in newspaper, and also have 7 plays over 70 years of career from 1930s until 2004. And he is regarded one of the first contemporary writers in Arabic literature to explore themes of existentialism. So he's really famous. I grew up watching his movies, actually. So I never read his books, unfortunately, but I knew about them from the movies that I watched. And the famous one that I chose for today is the Cairo trilogy. And also there is the Children of the Alley, which are the most famous. But today we're going to speak about the trilogy, the Cairo trilogy. Cairo trilogy, yes. And it includes the Palace Walk, Palace of Desire, and Sugar Streets. And these are all written in Arabic and also translated in several languages. Also raised 3 generations of the family of tyrannical patriarch As-Sayyid Ahmed. And he used this to, actually it was banned from Egypt. It wasn't published in Egypt, it was actually published in Lebanon.
Wow.
And this character of his who rules his household with the strict hand while living a secret life of self-indulgence. So in the Palace Walk, he introduces us to his gentle and oppressed wife Amina, and his daughters Aisha and Khadija. And also he gives us a soul searching, like other characters, soul searching intellectual Kamal as well. And he tells the story beyond the domination. And also in the Palace of Desire, he explores and opens the world around the currents of modernity and political and domestic turmoil brought by 1920s. And in the Sugar Street, he brings Mahfouz brings a vivid tapestry as well of an evolving Egypt to a dramatic climax. As the aging patriarch sees one grandson become communist, and one become a Muslim fundamentalist, and one a lover of powerful politicians. So through this trilogy, Mahfouz also exposes us to a country during the years spanning the two world wars, and as change comes to society that has resisted for centuries. So he tells the story of a country, because all the stories that Najib Mahfouz wrote took place in Egypt in different forms. So he was telling a story of Egypt through his eyes, so he was speaking about misery people live in, and the political restrictions, non-freedom of the population. So he transferred the oral living to the written. And that's what made him a great writer in Arabic. This is, I think, why he won the Nobel Prize in the first place.
Wow! That is a good. It's a good description about the book. I'm surprised because I think when I was preparing my paper or my presentation, I thought most probably I was looking about for a Nobel winning prize. Mm-hmm. I think my search never came to Egypt. I think
you did.
I think next time I need to borrow some.
I think we are biased here. You are searching in West Africa. I'm searching in mostly North Africa, East Africa. So
no, it's not about biasness. But you see, most of the writings in North Africa, like this one, you said it was a translation from Arab.
Mm-hmm. Arabic, yeah.
Arabic, exactly. Yeah. So most of the words, according to me, they become a little bit hard for me to pronounce them. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is actually he wrote this in Arabic, yes, but it's the Egyptian Arabic, not the classic Arabic. So there is a completely different. It's completely different from the classic, but it's still Arabic. And I enjoyed watching his movies, and I want to get his book to read now.
Yeah, but also now that this is our third episode, I think as time goes on, most probably we'll see exactly the trajectory about the African authors, because even when I'm preparing for for the presentation, I always find most of the authors are so much about either politics, colonialism, such like stuff. I think we are. It's either we're writing out of our sufferings. I think I don't know exactly if there are books that are out of happiness. I don't know.
I think there are. We will probably present them.
Yeah, I think
We'll find them and present them.
I think time will tell. Yeah.
Thank you for joining us in this third episode of the Voice of Africa Library podcast.
We hope you enjoyed this episode.
We would appreciate if you could share the podcast with your networks, and we will be glad to hear your thoughts and feedback. And together we say,
See you next time.